You ever been kicked out of the White House? I have. Professor Poutine here. Time for Mysteries Histories. Back in the early 90s, I worked at Fort Henry in Kingston, which is a fort set in 1867. We wear British uniforms, fire off cannons, march around doing 1867 drill with rifles and bayonets and all that sort of stuff. And every other year, the Fort Henry Guard goes down to Washington, D.C. and performs for the Marines at the 8th and I Barracks. And so we headed off, big busload full of university students wearing British uniforms, followed by a cube van filled with gunpowder and rifles and broken down howitzers, followed by a cube van with our goat, which was our mascot. All of us were allowed to go to D.C. wearing British uniforms. The gunpowder and the guns were allowed to go, but they kept our goat at the border. I guess it didn't have the right papers. Anyway, we arrived in D.C., we practiced, and the morning we were supposed to perform, we were done by around noon, and we thought, this would be fun. Let's wander around downtown D.C. wearing British uniforms. So we went and saw the Lincoln Memorial and the Reflecting Pool and the Washington Monument, and then we noticed that the White House was giving tours, and we thought, let's go on a tour of the White House wearing British uniforms. So we did. Fascinating tour. We entered in through the east wing of the building. Can't do that anymore, I guess. Anyway, on the tour, one of the guests asked the tour guide, because she noticed that the ceiling was different in one room than it was in a different room, why was the ceiling different? And the tour guide said, well, you may or may not be aware of this, but in 1814, there was quite a bad fire in D.C., burned this part of the building, and when they rebuilt it after the War of 1812, they just changed the style. Fair enough. But then the guest said, what caused the fire? And the tour guide said, a cow kicked over a lantern, and that fire burned down a lot of D.C. Now, all of us are history majors on wearing our uniforms, and we're like, that's not right. So one of us put his hand up and said, pardon me, that information's incorrect. You're thinking of the Chicago fire, Mrs. O'Leary's cow. That burned down Chicago. That's not why Washington, D.C. burned in 1814. And the tour guide said, well, what did cause the fire? And he said, the British torched it, baby. And we all said, yeah, we burned that building, we burned that building, we burned that building. And the tour guide's like, get him out of here. Really quickly, guards come in, grab us up by the arm, start frog marching us out of the White House. And as we're all being shoved out of the White House, we all started singing, rule Britannia, Britannia, rule the waves. Oh, to be young and stupid again. Consider yourself updated.